So, hi everyone, welcome for another webinar. Today, I have got Rahul with me. He's a partner at Tax Mantra Global. And today we would be discussing about a very important topic which has brought in a lot of criticism and also fear in the minds of NRIs. From this financial year, there is a change in terms of how someone would be regarded or someone would be assumed to be a resident or a non-resident. So there is a rule change in the rule regarding residential status, and we will focus on that, and we will also focus in terms of how income of NRIs will be taxed effectively from financial year 2021. These two topics are very important in the sense that there is massive change which was brought in, wherein the limit was reduced from 180 days to 120 days for a residential status. So to talk more on this and to help me in conducting this webinar, Rahul will get into deep discussion on the webinar and the presentation. Rahul, I welcome you. So please, if you can start your presentation. And in the meantime, we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube. So if you have any requirement or if you have any query as such, you can ping in the comment box on Facebook, on YouTube, and you can also ping in the chat box. I'm just so you can ping here also. Thanks for joining in, Rahul. Let us start.
Thank you, Alok. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, today, as Alok mentioned, we'll be talking about the current laws which prevail related to the residential status of a individual in India, and there were some changes which were brought in budget 2020, and now the act was passed. The Finance Act has already been passed long back, and so that has already come into force. And financial year 2021, the new laws are applicable. And we have received a lot of queries from Indian citizens who are residing outside, other non-residents who visit India regularly for business or other purposes. And there has been some confusion around this, so we thought that we'll take it up in this webinar and discuss the change in the rule and what is the current situation and how the taxability would happen for non-residents. And so one thing which we need to keep in mind is that the budget announcement which happened, so the initial finance bill had some amendments. However, there were again some amendments brought in when finally the Finance Act was passed. So before passing of the act, there were again some amendments and some relaxations provided in the amendments which were initially proposed. So we'll discuss that too today. So giving a brief background, so why residential status is important. So India is a country which taxes the citizens, the individuals, based on their tax residency and not based on their citizenship. So any person who is a tax resident in India, he has to report and file taxes for his or her global income in India, irrespective of the citizenship of the person. And if the person is non-resident from the taxation perspective, or even resident but not ordinarily resident, then in those cases, the income which are accruing or arising in India are being received in India. Only those income are taxed in India, and their other foreign incomes apart from India source income are not taxable. So that is why every year determination of tax residency becomes very important for people who have income in multiple countries and they have residency or citizenship of different countries, multiple countries. So for them, knowing the law around residential status becomes very important, because that is what determines the taxability of the income and reporting of the income for them. So there are many countries around the globe who tax the individuals based on their tax residency. So if the person is tax resident in that country, they would tax their income. Otherwise, they would not do. There are other countries who tax their citizens. So they, irrespective of, for instance, United States, irrespective of the tax residency, the citizens of the United States, they are required to report their global income in the United States. So there are provisions of double taxation avoidance, wherein based on the agreement between the two countries, the person can not pay taxes twice or double tax, but pay it only at one place or get the credit of the taxes paid in another place. However, determining the tax residency is the first step in determining the tax liability of the person, and also to determine the countries in which the person would be liable to pay taxes. Traditionally, Indian laws have been very restricted to tax residency related rules, wherein if the person is tax resident in India, you pay taxes on global income in India. Otherwise, you don't pay, and you pay it only in your India income. So now we'll move to who is considered as a tax resident in India. So an individual is said to be a resident in India in any year if he is in India for a period of 182 days or more in that year. So if a person stays in India for 182 days or more in that year, the person will be considered as a tax resident in India. Also, along with this, we'll also have to check a second criteria. So if a person is in India for 60 days in a particular year, and within the preceding 4 years, if the person was in India for 365 days or more, then also the person becomes tax resident in India. So for instance, if we are talking about the last financial year 1920, so if there is a person who is a, say, US citizen, and he stays in India for, say, 190 days during the financial year 1920, starting April, ending 31st March 20, then he becomes a tax resident in India. Second criteria is if he has stayed for 60 days or more. So if a person has stayed in, say, if a person is a Singaporean citizen and he stayed in India for, say, 70 days in the last financial year 1920, then we'll also have to check that what was the status of that individual in last 4 years, preceding 4 years before the financial year 1920. And if he has stayed in India for 365 days or more in those 4 years, then also he becomes resident even if he has not stayed for 182 days or more in that year. So these are like if any one of the conditions, point 1 and 2, if they satisfy, the person becomes tax resident in India. However, there are two kind of people to whom some relaxation has been provided. So one are the people who during that financial year, so if we are talking about financial year 1920, if during the financial year 1920 an individual who is an Indian citizen and he has left India as a member of a cruise ship or for purpose of employment outside India during the last financial year 1920, then in that case, the 60 days, the second criteria of 60 days, that has been substituted by 182 days or more. It means that if a person who is an Indian citizen, he has moved out of India for employment or as a member of cruise ship, for him, the second condition, the 60 days condition does not apply. For him, we'll have to see if he has been in India for 182 days or more, then only he becomes a tax resident in India in the particular financial year. Second relaxation has been given again to Indian citizens and person of Indian origin who usually stay outside India, but they have visited India during the previous financial year. So for those people also, there was an extended limit of 182 days or more instead of 60 days in the second condition. So person of Indian origin and Indian citizen, if they visit India and if they are in India for 182 days or more, then only they used to become tax resident in India and not based on the 60-day criteria or 4 years and 365 4 years and 365 days criteria. So now this is the position till financial year 1920. So this is what the law was there that has been existent for few years now. Until financial year 1920, this was the law which was prevalent. So here, if we see, if what we can conclude from this slide is that if a person is a Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin, then for him there is only one criteria of 182 days or more of stay in India. However, if a person is not an Indian citizen and is not a person of Indian origin, for him, if he is in India for 182 days or more, or if he's in India for 60 days or more, and in preceding 4 years, if he has been in India for 365 days or more, the person becomes tax resident. However, the Finance Act 2020, which is applicable from 1st April 2020 onwards, there has been some amendment. So earlier, as we discussed in the last slide, the person of Indian origin or Indian citizen, they were given a relaxation wherein they could stay up to 182 days or more, and the limit of 60 days were not applicable for them. So in this case, there has been an amendment wherein instead of 182 days or more, the limit has been brought down to 120 days or more. So for Indian citizen or person of Indian origin, either if they stay for 182 days or more in India, they become Indian tax resident, or they stay in that year for 120 days or more, and within last 4 preceding years, if they have stayed in India for 365 days or more, they become tax resident. So this was the initial proposal in the budget 2020. However, there was an amendment which had come in before passing of the act, and there was a monetary limit which had been put in. The monetary limit is of 15 lakh rupee. So now the final act which has been passed, the law stands that Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin whose total income other than the income from foreign sources, it means the income which is from Indian sources, if that income is exceeding 15 lakh, then for them the word 60 days has been substituted by 120 days. So person who have India source income of more than 15 lakhs, for them this amendment has been brought in wherein instead of 182 days, we'll have to see the limit of 120 days. And so people who have India source income up to 15 lakh, for them the law stands same as it was earlier before amendment. For them, they had a relaxation of up to 182 days and more. However, people with 15 lakh or more income, India source income, for them it has been reduced to 120 days. And as per the finance minister's announcement, this change has been done because many people, they were using this provision to not pay taxes in India, even though they had substantial business presence and interest in India. So, and as I said, the initial budget proposal didn't had any monetary limit, but before passing of the act, amendment was brought in, and an additional financial limit of 15 lakh has been brought in. So now the situation is that in point 182 days or more, if a person is in India, he becomes a tax resident in India. And in second point, for income more than 15 lakh, Indian income, Indian source income more than 15 lakh, we'll have to see if the person is in India for 120 days or more, and within 4 preceding year, if he has been in India for 365 days or more, then he becomes tax resident in India. Alok, is this clear, or is it still confusing?
No, it's clear. It's clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So apart from that, there were 2 more changes, which were important changes which were made in this budget 2020. So one is that as we discussed earlier, India traditionally taxes person who are tax residents in India. However, there is a major shift in that position of the Indian tax authorities and the Indian government, wherein they have introduced a new clause 1A in the same section 6, where the residential status has been defined and explained, wherein as per this amendment, an Indian citizen whose again total income is 15 lakh or more during the year in which we are calculating that, and if the person is not resident in India and he is not resident in any other tax jurisdiction also in any other country because of his stay in different jurisdiction during the year, if he does not become tax resident in any country and his India source income is more than 15 lakh rupee in that year, in those scenario, the person will be deemed to be an Indian tax resident. So this law applies to citizens of India. It does not apply to people who are not citizens of India, Indian passport holders. And if their income other than the income from foreign sources exceeds 15 lakh during the previous year, they shall be deemed to be resident in India in that previous year if he is not liable to tax in any other country or territory by reason of his domicile or residence or any other criteria of similar nature. So, for example, if a person, for instance, is a tax resident in UAE,
Rahul, can you go back to the earlier slide first?
Yeah.
So it says that exceeding 15 lakh during the previous year shall deemed to be resident in India in that previous year, even if he is not liable to tax in any of the country or territory. So if you just throw some more light on this, what does that?
So this particular thing will take an example. So in the next slide we have an example related to this. So this will bring in more clarity on this. We'll again come back to this slide.
Yeah.
So for instance, so in case there is a NRI who is an Indian citizen, Indian passport holder, and he is residing in certain countries which do not levy personal income tax. So, for instance, if a person is an Indian citizen but he is tax resident of UAE, and UAE, for instance, does not impose any income tax, and that person has an India sourced income of 15 lakh rupee or more. In that scenario, this clause 1A would not be applicable because that person is a tax resident of UAE, and it is because of the local laws he is not paying any income tax over there, but he is liable to pay income tax in UAE if the UAE government starts charging him income tax. Right now he is not paying because the UAE government is not charging, but he is still liable to pay tax over there because he is a tax resident over there. So in this scenario, there are the double taxation avoidance agreements also brings clarity on this. There are many advanced rulings from advanced ruling authorities which says that actual payment of tax is not equivalent to liable to tax. So the person, if he's tax resident in that country, then this new clause 1A does not become applicable. However, if the person, for instance, has hopped between 5 different countries and he is not tax resident in any country and he is not liable to pay taxes in any of the countries, the person is, for example, say 100 days in India, 100 days in UAE, 100 days in Dubai, in London, 100 days in USA, and because of the local tax laws in different countries, he does not become tax resident in that year in any of those years, then he is not liable to pay taxes there. Whether that country has income tax or not is secondary, but he is not liable to pay. So when the person is not liable to pay taxes anywhere, but he is an Indian citizen and his Indian source income is exceeding 15 lakh rupee in that particular year, then that person will be deemed to be Indian tax resident.
Okay.
So this monetary limit of 15 lakh was also brought in at a later stage after various round of discussion in the parliament. The initial budget proposal didn't had this monetary limit, and it was covering each and every individual who were not liable to pay taxes in other jurisdictions. But now when the final act was passed, we had this 15 lakh of monetary limit. If the person has income exceeding 15 lakhs, India source income exceeding 15 lakhs, and is not liable to pay taxes anywhere else because of his domicile or residential status, then in such scenarios, the person will be deemed to be Indian tax resident, and he'll have to report and pay taxes on the global income in India. So, and this is a major shift in the tax department status and how they treat the things, because till now they were taxing just tax residents in India, but now they are moving. It seems to be that they are moving towards taxing Indian citizens or asking Indian citizens to report their global income.
No,
It is not completely that, yeah,
this is something which is massive, and this will impact many Indian citizens who were not paying taxes in any of the countries because of either there was no tax there, or because of the residential status of those person in that particular country. As you rightly said that they were hopping between different countries. So I think this is a massive change, because now they have to think twice before doing that. And if the total income exceeds 15 lakh rupees, they will be deemed to be resident in India.
yes,
But
yes.
how? But on a practical point, how would the government know that the limit of 15 lakh rupees? I mean, is there a way government can find it out?
No, so this limit is for India sourced income. So mostly, if the person is earning income from India, there would be some trail. Maybe it will reflect in his Form 26 AS because of TDS being deducted, through bank statements, through the AIR reports which various government departments file, banking institutions file, or maybe the entities who have made these payments to the person through their. So this limit relates to the India sourced income. So
Yeah,
Indian
yeah.
government will have access to this data one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed. But it's not something which is easy to implement.
Yeah, yeah, we can say that.
Mm.
So right now we talked about residents, and taxability of residents is, as we discussed, is global income. For Indian tax residents, their global income will be taxed in India and have to be reported in India. And for non-residents, only India sourced income is what they are liable to pay tax in India, and not their other foreign sourced income. So that is why the tax residency status becomes very important. Now there is also a important concept of residents but not ordinarily residents, RNOR. So this budget also has made some changes in the RNOR related provisions, and that is why we should first try and understand that what is this residents but not ordinarily residents a clause. So mainly RNOR concept had been brought in. It's been there in the Income Tax Act for a long time, and the purpose behind this concept is that maybe a person becomes a tax resident in India for any XYZ reason in 1 or 2 years. So the intent is not to make the person's global income taxable in India if the person becomes resident in a particular year, but he is not ordinarily resident in India, as the name suggests. So in 1 or 2 years, the person becomes an Indian tax resident, but again, he becomes a non-resident. So in these scenarios, the intent of the government is not to start taxing the global income and ask them to report their global income in India. So it's kind of a transitory provision wherein when a person becomes a resident in India for first time, the government allows some time, maybe 2 years or so. We'll discuss the exact provisions in the later slides. The government provides some time frame to the person so that he can make the adjustments related to what is taxable in India, what is not taxable in India, or if it is a short-term residency, then when they go back, they and even during that short-term residency, they are not being asked by the tax authorities to pay taxes on their global income. They can continue during this RNOR status. This is a transitory status wherein they can continue to pay taxes only on their India sourced income and not on their global income and income which have been earned or sourced from outside India. So that is why the RNOR provisions are there. So section 6 of the Income Tax Act, which talks about the residential status, the subclause 6, section 6 subsection 6 talks about RNOR status. So it says that a person shall be not ordinarily resident in India if the person has been non-resident in 9 out of 10 preceding year. So if a person in 9 out of 10 preceding years is a non-resident, then even if in the first year he becomes resident, he'll still be resident but not ordinarily resident. However, if the person is for say 2 continuous years resident in India, not even 2, say 3 continuous years, if the person is a resident in India, then if we see this criteria that 9 out of 10 preceding year, then the person becomes non-resident in only 8 out of 10 preceding years if the person is an Indian tax resident for 3 years. So we can say that this is a 2 years time frame provided to non-residents who becomes resident in India so they can continue to enjoy the RNOR status for 2 years. And after that, if they still continue to be residents in India, then they become resident but ordinarily resident, and then their global income is taxed in India. And second condition in RNOR is, so either the person is a non-resident in 9 out of 10 preceding years from the previous year which we are talking about, then the person is a resident but not ordinarily resident, or if the person has been in India for 729 days or less in 7 preceding years. So either 9 out of 10 preceding year, the person is a non-resident as per the applicable non-resident related laws, or in 7 preceding years, they have been in India for 729 days or less. So in both these conditions, they become RNOR, and they continue to enjoy the benefit wherein their global income is not taxed in India. There's some change, some minor change, difference in the taxability of RNOR and non-resident. We'll discuss this in the next slide. But this is the whole concept of RNOR, and this also applies to a manager or a karta of a HUF, Hindu Undivided Family. So the residential status of the HUF is determined based on the residential status of the manager, and the above 2 conditions would apply to the manager of the HUF to determine the residential status of the HUF. So now with the amendment in Finance Act 2020, the 2 amendments which we discussed earlier, wherein with a 15 lakh financial limit, one for the Indian citizens and person of Indian origin, the time limit of 182 days has been reduced to 120 days if the person had been in India for 365 days or more in the 4 preceding years. The person becomes a resident. And second, if the person was not tax resident elsewhere, then he has a 15 lakh income exceeding 15 lakh from India sources, then the person is deemed to be tax resident in India. In those scenarios, the person becomes tax resident in India, but the government, giving some relaxation, has also amended the RNOR related provision, section 6(6) of the Income Tax Act, and they have considered these people to be deemed as RNOR during that period. So the first amendment says that if a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin having total income other than income from foreign sources exceeding 15 lakh rupees during the previous year, who has been in India for a period or periods amounting in all to 120 days or more, but less than 182 days. So for these people who have stayed in India for between 120 days and 182 days, they become resident as per the earlier provision which we talked about, the earlier amendment. But again, there is a relaxation wherein they become resident, but they become not ordinarily resident. They become RNOR. So still they get some time to not pay taxes on their foreign sourced income. Similarly, a citizen of India who is deemed to be resident in India under the newly added clause 1A, wherein the person becomes a deemed resident in India because he is an Indian citizen, but he is not tax resident in any other jurisdiction. Those person who become a deemed tax resident in India, they continue to be RNOR. And once they come out of the RNOR status, they continue to be resident in India for more than 1 year. Then they actually become ROR, resident but ordinarily resident, and their global income shall be taxed in India. So this RNOR provision has been amended so as to give some transitionary benefit to the person who becomes resident under the earlier amendments, but the government still treats them as RNOR and gives them some relaxation. So we have taken an example. So if there is a NRI whose taxable income exceeds 15 lakh and he stays in India for 120 days or more, for example, the person stays in India for 130 days, then such an individual further needs to check whether his stay in India is 365 days or more in immediately preceding 4 years or not. So let us assume a non-resident visits India in financial year 2020-21. So these amendments are applicable for financial year 2020-21 onwards, and it has nothing to do with the financial year 1920 or earlier. So the return which will be filed for 1920 now in this financial year, it is not applicable in those cases. It is applicable for financial year 2021, for which the returns will be filed after March 21 ends. So if a non-resident visits India in financial year 2021, having taxable income in the financial year exceeding 15 lakh in India, and he, for example, stays in India for 130 days, and further during the preceding 4 financial year, that is 1920, 18-19, 17-18, and 16-17, if the person was in India for 365 days or more, then in such cases, the person will be treated as a resident individual for income tax purposes, as per the very early slide which we discussed, the first amendment which we discussed. So while this may be alarming for many NRIs, but again, as we discussed, that there is a relief which has been provided, wherein the person will become a resident but NOR. He will be a RNOR. He will be under RNOR status, and this would be a relief as their foreign income and income which are accruing outside India shall not be taxable in India as long as they have this RNOR status. Any confusion or question around this?
No, not really, Rahul.
Okay. So we have tried to prepare a chart to showcase how income will be taxed for different people having different kind of residential status. So income which are received, accrued, or have arisen in India, or have deemed to receive, accrued, or arise in India, these income are taxable for everyone irrespective of their residential status, be it resident and ordinarily resident, resident and not ordinarily resident, or non-resident. If it is an India sourced income, it is taxable in India under Section 9 of the Income Tax Act, because all income accruing, arising, or received in India, or deemed to accrue, arise, or being received in India is taxable in India. Second, if income accrue or arise outside India from business controlled in India or profession set up in India, So, for instance, a person is resident and not ordinarily resident in India, and there is an Indian firm which pays the person to his foreign bank account, and the person has provided his services when he was not in India. So this is an example where a business or a profession has been set up in India or is being controlled in India, and but it accrues or arises to the person outside India because he's sitting outside and he's earning it there. But he comes back to India and has a RNOR status. So in these situations, if the person is resident, there is no question about it. It shall be taxable in India because for resident and ordinarily resident, the global income is taxed in India. If the person is resident but not ordinarily resident, for him also it will be taxable in India because it is a India sourced income, even though it has accrued outside India. And if it were for a non-resident, then it is not taxable in India. Third scenario is where income accrues or arises outside India. So if an income comes to a person which has no India relation, it is earned outside India, it is from a company or a paying authority which is outside India, then it will be taxable in India only if the person is a resident. Then his global income gets taxed. But if the person is RNOR, if the person is NR, in both the cases, his income, foreign sourced income, will not be taxable in India. Further, for last several years, Indian income tax return, they have a foreign asset disclosure requirement. So this is mandatory for all residents and ordinarily residents. However, for RNOR and for non-resident, this requirement has been relaxed and they are not required to report their foreign assets in their income tax returns filed in India. So RNOR and NR don't need to file it. However, residents and ordinarily residents, they have to file it. For residents and ordinarily residents, all their income is taxable. We can see all the yes here because their global income is taxed. For RNOR, their India sourced income accruing arising in India is taxable. Income accruing or arising outside India but still having India relationship shall also be taxable. However, their totally foreign sourced income, other income which they earn outside from outside sources, that is not taxable, and their foreign assets are also not reportable. And for non-residents, only their income accruing or arising directly in India is taxable in India, and their other income is not taxable, and their disclosure requirement of foreign assets is also not there. So this is the summary of what we have discussed. Now, if we have any further questions, we can take up the questions, or if anything which has not been very clear, we can go back to it.
So I have a query from Ravi Raul, and he says that as a non-resident today, what are the checks they should do in terms of to understand that whatever is there a change in the taxability of their current income?
So if a person is a so let me make it very clear here that if a person is not Indian citizen, he is not a person of Indian origin, he is not a Indian citizen, and he's a foreigner who visits India. For him, the change in the law is minimum. Rather, I should say that there has been no amendment for such person. So a person who is a complete foreigner, a complete non-resident, he is not an Indian citizen, he is not a person of Indian origin. For those person, still this law stands, this clause. So first is we have to check if they have been in India in that year for 182 days or more, or they have been in India for 60 days or more in that year, and 365 days or more in 4 preceding year to that year. So this loss remains the same for foreigners who come India for business, for employment, for travel, any other purpose, anything it may be. However, changes have happened for Indian citizens and person of Indian origin. So for them, we'll have to see if first of all they have been in India for 182 days or not. If not, were they in India for 120 days or more? If they were, then last 4 years condition has to be checked. If they get covered under this 120 days criteria, so I have discussed with various of our clients who stay outside India, they do their business outside India, but maybe they have their parents in India or some business connection, some house property, some real estate which they have on which they earn rental income, or they have their family over here, and they visit India and they stay for a few months in India, and they again would go back to their foreign country where they stay. So many such cases have come in wherein they were keeping their number of days of stay of less than 180 days, and now they have been stuck in this because that 182 days requirement has been brought down to 120 days for such person. So they'll have to be careful and they'll have to analyze that when they get covered under this 120 days criteria, first thing which they will have to check is that were they in India for 365 days or more in 4 preceding years. If that criteria also gets fulfilled, then we will have to check the RNOR condition. So if they are in India for 120 days or more, and this 4 years and 365 days criteria also gets fulfilled, they become resident. But then still they have the relief available if they are covered under RNOR provision. So for them, we'll have to see if they were non-residents in 9 out of 10 years, or if they were for less than 729 days or 729 days or lesser days they were in 7 preceding year, then they can enjoy the benefit of RNOR. Plus people who are getting covered under the new provisions, because if they have stayed for 120 days, between 120 days and 182 days, or they have become deemed tax resident in India because they are not resident elsewhere, they can still continue to enjoy their RNOR status for at least 1 or 2 years, and then they will get some time to plan their taxes accordingly. So, but yeah, number of days of stay will have to be analyzed on a case-to-case basis to see the real impact.
Yeah. So all those people who were coming to India very regularly and their number of stay was between 120 days to 180 days, they all need to be careful.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Uh, so uh,
I would like to bring in one more point. So, tax residency, if the person becomes tax resident in India, his global income is taxed. But we all should know, and all the taxpayers should know that India has double taxation avoidance agreements for agreements with more than 150 countries. So, in most of the cases, it's not that the person would end up paying a double tax. So they might end up paying higher tax because they'll have to pay the taxes wherever in the jurisdiction wherever the taxes are higher. But normally the Indian tax department also has the provision, and double taxation avoidance agreement also provides the person the benefit of taking the credit of tax paid in one jurisdiction to set it off against the tax liability in another jurisdiction. So that is something which can be taken care of. The income tax returns have the option of that. We can help you with that as a firm. We do that for many NRI clients, and so that is one. And apart from that, there are other rules also which can be applied to there's a concept of tiebreaker rule, wherein if the person is tax resident in two particular countries, then based on the scenarios, uh, tax residency of one country can be determined as per double taxation avoidance agreement. So all those benefits are still available. Plus, the government has given the RNOR relaxation, so that can also be taken. And I would say that we don't need to worry. We just need to plan better.
yeah, Rahul. Yeah. So I think that's it for today. Little bit of about Tax Mantra. So we are a global tax and legal firm based out of India, Singapore, and US. We do regulatory tax and compliance services. We do a lot of stuff in international taxation, transfer pricing in India, Singapore, and India, US structuring. We also do the India taxation at large, and we also help many startups and growing companies to raise funds. We are situated in Singapore, in Kolkata, in Bangalore, Mumbai, and extensively in US. If you have any queries, you can drop an email on info@taxmantra.com. You can also call us at the toll-free number, or you can visit our website, and we will be more than happy to help you and simplify your taxation and your tax structure. Thanks for today. Thanks, Rahul, for doing this a very comprehensive webinar on residential status. It does help because of the recent changes, and many of the SSEs are ignorant about the change, and they will only realize next year when the tax return will be due, and then they will realize that, oh, I have stayed in India for more than less than 180 days, and still I've been considered, and I've been able to pay taxes. So I think it will be very helpful for all our viewers. And thanks again, and stay tuned to our website and to our emailers, so that we will be doing more webinars and you will stay updated. Thanks for joining in today, and we look after to see you again. At this time, take care, stay safe, and let's continue to be positive. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.